Were you disappointed when Google went back on its promise not to support military uses of AI?
Very disappointed.
But it's part of a pattern, Hinton says, adding Meta and xAI to the list of companies racing faster than they should.
For example, the fraction of their computer time they spend on safety research should be a significant fraction, like a third. Right now, it's much, much less.
Hinton, now on the AI sidelines, says government regulation is needed, but doesn't expect it soon.
I'm curious if just in your normal day-to-day life you despair. You fear for the future and assume it won't be so good.
I don't despair, but mainly because even I find it very hard to take it seriously. It's very hard to get your head around the fact that we're at this very, very special point in history where in a relatively short time, everything might totally change, a change of a scale we've never seen before. It's hard to absorb that emotionally.
We asked the AI labs mentioned in the piece how much of their compute is used for safety research. None of them gave us a specific number, but all have said safety is important and they support regulation in general, but they've mostly opposed regulations that have come up before lawmakers so far.
Did he indicate which sector the breach might technically happen?
Well, like he says, he's already worried about banks. He thinks banks are going to be a target. He has spread his money across different banks.
Oh, wow.
Creating something we don't fully understand, AI might be the Frankenstein of the 21st century. Is it truly alive? No, not like you or me. But it's starting to behave in ways that are shockingly close. It learns, adapts, makes decisions, and even creates things we didn't ask it to. That's new territory. And the truth is, most of us, even the people building it, don't fully know where this is headed. When I first started paying attention to all the buzz around AI, I didn't take the doom talk seriously. It felt like one of those exaggerated headlines meant to get clicks. AI will destroy humanity. Yeah, okay. But then I heard Geoffrey Hinton, a name I'd heard before but never really paid attention to, say out loud that he believes there's a real chance AI could take over and possibly wipe us out. And if you don't know who Hinton is, he's not just some tech guy with an opinion. He's the guy who helped invent the neural networks that power AI tools like ChatGPT. He's the reason this technology even exists. When someone like that says he's scared of what's coming next, you stop and listen. What really got me was how calm he was about it. He's not screaming about it. He's not doomsday prepping in a bunker somewhere. He's just explaining, in the way only someone deeply immersed in the science can, that we're moving way too fast and we're barely doing anything to make sure it doesn't go wrong. The way he put it hit hard. He compared AI to raising a tiger cub. Right now it's small, it's cute, it even does tricks. But one day it grows up. And when it does, if you didn't raise it right, you won't be able to control it. No matter how well you fed it, no matter how much you loved it. That's where we might be with AI. Still in the cute tiger phase, but time is ticking, and here's where it gets worse. The companies building this stuff, they're not slowing down. In fact, they're fighting to remove regulations and to move faster, not safer. Why? Profits. That's what bothers me most. We're dealing with technology that could change everything. Jobs, politics, truth, war. And it's being pushed forward by whoever can make the most money off it the fastest. Now, to be clear, I am not hating on AI. I think AI has amazing potential. It could help us cure diseases, make education accessible, solve climate problems. All of that is possible. But none of that matters if we ignore the risks. Because even if the chance of AI becoming dangerous is only 10 or 20% like Hinton says, would you get on a plane that had a 1 in 5 chance of crashing? Of course not. So why are we building something with a risk like that and pretending everything is fine? That's why I wanted to make this video. Not to scare you, but to get real about what's happening. The people building these systems, even the ones who love them, are starting to sound the alarm. And if they're worried, maybe it's time we paid attention. So let's take a closer look at what Geoffrey Hinton is saying, what it means for the future of AI, and what we, as people, not just consumers, should be thinking about now before the tiger grows up.
I mean, it's crazy. We're talking about having a huge increase in productivity. So there's going to be more goods and services for everybody. So everybody ought to be better off. But actually, it's going to be the other way around. Maybe at a point where we're just making things worse and worse.
I've heard a lot of hype around AI, and I used to think most of the fear was exaggerated. But after hearing Geoffrey Hinton, the man who helped invent the technology behind it all, say there's a real chance AI could wipe us out, I had to stop and really think. This isn't coming from a sci-fi movie or some conspiracy theory. It's coming from one of the most respected scientists in the world, and he's genuinely worried. With how fast this is moving and how little safety work is being done, I think we're on a dangerous path. So let's hear what he has to say and what exactly the warning is.
Brooke Silva Braga introduced us to this leading figure in AI back in 2023 and recently went back to visit him. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning. When we first met Hinton, the world had just been introduced to OpenAI's ChatGPT, triggering a kind of AI arms race. Hundreds of billions have been spent on AI in just the last 2 years. Hinton entered the field decades before it was cool, and now, retired from Google, has a unique, independent perspective on how we got here and where we're headed.
This is a Nobel Prize.
Last year, Geoffrey Hinton, for most of his life an outcast professor, was awoken by a call in the middle of the night. He was getting the Nobel Prize.
People dream of winning these things, and when you do win it, does it feel like you thought it might?
I never dreamt about winning one for physics, so I don't know. I dreamt about winning one for figuring out how the brain works.
Yeah.
But I didn't figure out how the brain works. But I won one anyway.
That's because Hinton's attempt to model the brain instead helped change the world. In 1986, he proposed using a neural network to predict the next word in a sequence, the foundational concept that today's large language models
It's an expert at everything.
have built upon.
You believe then that we would get here?
Yes, but not this soon.
Because that was 40 years.
I didn't think we'd get here in only 40 years.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, I didn't believe we'd get here.
Yeah, it happened fast.
Yeah.
That speed, Hinton says, means education and medicine will soon be transformed. Climate change could be solved. But mostly, the rapid progress really worries him.
The best way to understand it emotionally is we're like somebody who has this really cute tiger cub. It's just such a cute tiger cub. Unless you can be very sure that it's not going to want to kill you when it's grown up, you should worry. I'm kind of glad I'm 77.
Hinton predicts AI will make authoritarians more oppressive and hackers more effective. He now spreads his money across 3 banks. The exact odds of an AI apocalypse are unknowable, he says, but hazards this guess: a 10 to 20% risk AI will take over from humans.
People haven't got it yet. People haven't understood what's coming. I don't think there's a way of stopping it to take control if it wants to. The issue is, can we design it in such a way that it never wants to take control, that it's always benevolent?
Those concerns have long been shared by other AI leaders. Google CEO Sundar Pichai,
It can be very harmful if deployed wrongly.
XAI's Elon Musk, who continues to call for regulation.
It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
Sam Altman, seen here before he became OpenAI's CEO.
I think AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world.
But now, as these companies race each other and compete with China, Hinton worries they're foolishly, selfishly putting all of humanity at risk.
If you look what the big companies are doing right now, they're lobbying to get less AI regulation. There's hardly any regulation as it is, but they want less, because they want short-term profits.
Taking a stand against the establishment has been the hallmark of Hinton's life. When American AI funding required partnering with the Defense Department, he moved to Canada. When neural networks were laughed at as unworkable, he worked on them for a few decades more.
Is that a certain thing in a person?
Yeah, you have to be contrarian.
Yeah.
You have to have a deep belief that everybody else could be doing things wrong and you could figure out how to do them right.
So Geoffrey Hinton, the guy literally called the Godfather of AI, just said we might have about 18 months before things really start getting out of hand. And honestly, that's terrifying. This isn't some random YouTuber making predictions. Hinton invented the neural networks that power ChatGPT and all the AI we're using today. Now he's saying we moved way faster than even he expected, and that AI could become uncontrollable. What hit me the most was his tiger analogy. How AI feels like a cute, powerful tiger cub right now, but when it grows up, we might not be able to stop it. He thinks there's a 10 to 20% chance AI could literally take over from humans. That's not small. And he's not alone. People like Elon Musk and Sam Altman have said similar things, but now we've got one of the actual creators saying the risk is real. What bothers me is how the big companies are pushing for less regulation. Less. Like, we're talking about technology that could reshape everything: jobs, governments, truth, and we're letting profit drive the timeline. That's the part that scares me the most. I don't think people understand how serious this is. I'm not saying it's game over, but we need to wake up fast.
Ilya Sutskever, Hinton's most famous protege, went on to be chief scientist at OpenAI.
To just set up a large neural network, which is a large digital brain.
In 2023, he was part of the group that pushed out CEO Sam Altman, reportedly because they didn't trust that Altman was prioritizing safety.
I was quite proud of him for firing Sam Altman, even though it was very naive.
Naive, Hinton says, because OpenAI employees were about to get millions of dollars that would be jeopardized by Altman's departure. Altman returned, Sutskever left. Hinton criticizes his former colleagues at Google more reluctantly, but says they're falling short too.
Were you disappointed when Google went back on its promise not to support military uses of AI?
Very disappointed.
But it's part of a pattern, Hinton says, adding Meta and xAI to the list of companies racing faster than they should.
For example, the fraction of their computer time they spend on safety research should be a significant fraction, like a third. Right now, it's much, much less.
Hinton, now on the AI sidelines, says government regulation is needed, but doesn't expect it soon.
I'm curious if just in your normal day-to-day life you despair. You fear for the future and assume it won't be so good.
I don't despair, but mainly because even I find it very hard to take it seriously. It's very hard to get your head around the fact that we're at this very, very special point in history where in a relatively short time, everything might totally change. A change of a scale we've never seen before. It's hard to absorb that emotionally.
We asked the AI labs mentioned in the piece how much of their compute is used for safety research. None of them gave us a specific number, but all have said safety is important and they support regulation in general, but they've mostly opposed regulations that have come up before lawmakers so far.
Did he indicate which sector the breach might technically happen?
Well, like he says, he's already worried about banks. He thinks banks are going to be a target. He has spread his money across different banks.
Oh, wow. All right. It's a little scary, Brooke, but great reporting. Thank you so much.
Did you get the lens fixed on the camera?
The lens is fixed.
All right. Nobel Prize winner in action.
So AI has developed even faster than I thought. In particular, they now have these AI agents, which are more dangerous than AI that just answers questions, because they can do things in the world. So I think things have got, if anything, scarier than they were before.
Have you thought about how we move forward in a world where all these jobs go away?
So it's like this. It ought to be that if you can increase productivity, everybody benefits. The people who are doing those jobs can work a few hours a week instead of 60 hours a week. They don't need two jobs anymore. They can get paid lots of money for doing one job because they're just as productive using AI assistance. But we know it's not going to be like that. We know what's going to happen is the extremely rich are going to get even more extremely rich, and the not very well off are going to have to work 3 jobs now.
I think no one likes this question, but we like to ask it. And this idea of P-doom, how likely it is. And I am curious if you see this as a quite possible thing, or it's just so bad that even though the likelihood isn't very high, we should just be very concerned about it? Where are you on that scale of probability?
So I think most of the experts in the field would agree that if you consider the possibility that these things will get much smarter than us and then just take control away from us, just take over, the probability of that happening is very likely more than 1% and very likely less than 99%.
Yeah.
I think pretty much all the experts can agree on that.
Yeah. But that's not very helpful.
No, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
It might happen and it might not happen.
Yeah.
And then different people disagree on what the numbers are. Yeah. I'm in the unfortunate position of happening to agree with Elon Musk on this, which is that it's sort of 10 to 20% chance that these things will take over. But that's just a wild guess.
Yeah.
I think reasonable people would say it's quite a lot more than 1% and quite a lot less than 99%.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with something we've got no experience of. We have no real good way of estimating what the probabilities are.
What really got me here is when Hinton starts talking about his former protege, Ilya Sutskever, the guy who helped build OpenAI. This is someone he mentored, who literally shaped the AI we're using today. And Hinton was proud when Ilya tried to remove Sam Altman for not prioritizing safety. That says a lot. But then Ilya walked away after Altman returned, probably because of the insane money tied up in OpenAI. That's the problem. We're putting billions on the line, but we're barely investing in keeping this safe. Hinton says a third of computing power should go to safety. Right now, it's a tiny fraction. Then there's the short-term threat. Bad actors misusing AI, and we're already seeing it. Phishing attacks went up 1,200% just between 2023 and 2024. That's not a warning. That's happening right now. These scams used to be obvious. Bad grammar, weird phrasing. Now, they sound like your coworker or your bank. That's terrifying. And when he says the only time something less intelligent controls something smarter is a baby crying for its mom, it makes you realize how rare that is. If AI becomes smarter than us, we can't rely on some emotional override to stop it.
It seems to me at this point it's inevitable that we're going to find out.
We are going to find out, yes, because it seems extremely likely that these things will get smarter than us. Already, they're much more knowledgeable than us. So GPT-4 knows thousands of times more than a normal person. It's a not very good expert at everything. And eventually, its successors will be a good expert at everything. They'll be able to see connections between different fields that nobody's seen before.
Yeah, I'm also interested in understanding, okay, there's this terrible 10 to 20% chance, but...
Or more.
Or more.
Or less.
Or less. But let's just take as a premise that there's an 80% chance that they don't take over and wipe us out. So that's the most likely scenario. Do you still think it would be net positive or net negative if it's not the worst outcome?
Okay, if we can stop them taking over, that would be good. The only way that's going to happen is if we put serious effort into it. But I think once people understand that this is coming, there will be a lot of pressure to put serious effort into it. If we just carry on like now, just trying to make profits, it's going to happen. They're going to take over. We have to have the public put pressure on governments to do something serious about it. But even if the AIs don't take over, there's the issue of bad actors using AI for bad things. So mass surveillance, for example, which is already happening in China. If you look at what's happening in the west of China to the Uyghurs, the AI is terrible for them.
To board a plane to come to Toronto, I had to take a facial recognition photo from our US government.
Right, when I come into Canada, you put your passport and it looks at you and it looks at your passport. Every time it fails to recognize me. Everybody else it recognizes, people from all different nationalities it recognizes, me it can't recognize. And I'm particularly indignant since I assume it's using neural nets.
You didn't carve out an exception, did you?
No, it just, there's something about me that it doesn't like. AI is potentially very dangerous, and there's two sets of dangers. There's bad actors using it for bad things, and there's AI itself taking over. And they're quite different kinds of threat. And we know bad actors are already using it for bad things. We need to distinguish these two different kinds of threat. The bad actors using it for bad things and the AI itself taking over. I've talked mainly about that second threat, not because I think it's more important than the other threats, but because people thought it was science fiction.
This last part is honestly the most disturbing. Hinton flat out says there's a 10 to 20% chance AI could render us extinct. Extinct. He doesn't mean job loss or economic disruption. He's talking about humans being wiped out. And what's even more chilling is that almost every major researcher agrees AI will eventually be smarter than us. They just argue about when. Some say 20 years, some say 1 year. And the scariest part? We don't know what happens then. We don't have a playbook for a world run by something smarter than every human combined. Hinton even says AI could create a virus to kill us all. He's not being dramatic. He's saying that superintelligent systems could think of solutions we can't predict or stop. And right now, companies are pouring billions into making AI more powerful, not safer. Hinton says these companies should be spending 1/3 of their resources on safety. They're not. They're chasing profits, and unless governments step in, they won't change. We need to treat this like climate change. Build consensus first, then act. Because if he's even partly right, we may be running out of time. And that's a hard thing to emotionally absorb. But we don't get to ignore it just because it's uncomfortable. And just when you think Hinton's warning is the peak of concern, along comes someone like Leopold Aschenbrenner, a former OpenAI insider, who says the situation might actually be worse than we think. He was on the inside, saw the pace of development up close, and now he's speaking out with his own warning. That superintelligent AI isn't decades away. It might be just a few years out. And what he describes honestly sounds like something out of a science fiction thriller. Except it's not fiction, and it's happening.
I think
right
people
now.
talk about AGI, and they're always just talking about the private AI labs. People are just vastly underrating the chances of this more or less looking like a government project. I mean, look, when we have like literal superintelligence on our cluster, and it's like you have 1 billion superintelligent scientists, they can like hack everything, they can like Stuxnet the Chinese data centers. Do you really think that'll be like a private company? There's this sort of misconception that AGI development is going to be some like beautiful decentralized thing. That's not how it's going to look like. $100 billion, trillion cluster, it's not going to be that many people that have it. It's going to be 2 or 3 big players on the private world. You're talking about basically the most powerful weapon ever, and you're kind of making this radical bet on like a private company CEO as the benevolent dictator. I mean, what do we do with nukes? The way we keep nukes in check is not like, you know, a beefed up Second Amendment where like each state has their own like little nuclear arsenal, and like, you know, Dario and Sam have their own little nuclear arsenal. No, it's institutions, it's constitutions, it's laws. The other issue though, it won't just be 2 or 3. There'll be 2 or 3, and it'll be China and Russia and North Korea. In the private lab world, there is no way they'll have security that is good enough.
What better way to understand the danger of AI than hearing it directly from the people who built it? Leopold Aschenbrenner wasn't a YouTuber. He wasn't a critic. He was on the inside at OpenAI, working on alignment, safety, and preparing for the moment machines become smarter than humans. And then he was fired, reportedly for leaking internal documents, not just opinions, not just speculation, but actual insight into what's coming, and how soon. After he left, Leopold published a document called Situational Awareness. It lays out a detailed roadmap, backed by data, showing exactly how AI is likely to evolve over the next few years. And if even half of what he predicts turns out to be true, we're looking at a world-changing shift that most people aren't ready for. He says superintelligence, AI that's smarter than the best researchers, could arrive as early as 2027. That's not a guess. That's based on scaling trends we've already seen from GPT-2 to GPT-4. And what's coming next?
So, you know, I think so 25, 26, we're going to get models that are, you know, basically smarter than most college graduates. I think sort of a lot of the economic usefulness, I think, really depends on sort of unhobbling. Basically, it's, you know, the models are kind of, you know, they're smart, but they're limited, right? They're, you know, there's this chatbot, you know, and things like being able to use a computer, things like being able to do kind of like agentic long horizon tasks. Yeah. And then I think by 27, 28, you know, if you extrapolate the trends, and you know, we'll talk about that more later, and I talk about it in the series, I think we hit, you know, basically, you know, like as smart as the smartest experts. I think the unhobbling trajectory kind of points to, you know, it looks much more like an agent than a chatbot, and much more almost like basically like a drop-in remote worker, right? So it's not like, I think basically, I mean, I think this is the sort of question on the economic returns. I think a lot of the intermediate AI systems could be really useful, but, you know, it actually just takes a lot of schlep to integrate them, right? Like GPT-4, you know, whatever, 4.5, you know, probably there's a lot you could could do with them in a business use case. But you really got to change your workflows to make them useful. And it's just like there's a lot of it's a very Tyler Cowen-esque take. It just takes a long time to diffuse. You know? It's like we're an SF and so we missed that or whatever. But I think in some sense, the way a lot of these systems want to be integrated is you kind of get this sort of sonic boom where it's, the sort of intermediate systems could have done it, but it would take in schlep. And before you do the schlep to integrate them, you get much more powerful systems that are sort of unhobbled. And so they're this agent and there's this drop-in remote worker. And, and then you're kind of interacting with them like a coworker, right? You can do Zoom calls with them and you're slacking them and you're like, can you do this project? And then they go off and they, go away for a week and write a first draft and get feedback on them and, run tests on their code, and then they come back and you see it and you tell them a little bit more things, or and that'll be much easier to integrate. And so it might be that actually you need a bit of overkill to make the sort of transition easy and to really harvest the gains.
What do you mean by the overkill? Overkill on the model capabilities?
Yeah. So basically, the intermediate models could do it, but it would take a lot of schlep. So then they're like, actually, it's just the drop-in remote worker kind of AGI that can automate cognitive tasks that actually just ends up kind of like basically it's the intermediate models would have made the software engineer more productive, but will the software engineer adopt it? And then the 27 model is you just don't need the software engineer. You can literally interact with it like a software engineer, and it'll do the work of a software engineer.
All right, let's get into the first warning. And in my opinion, this one alone should be enough to stop people in their tracks. Leopold Aschenbrenner, a former OpenAI researcher, says this: "It is strikingly plausible that by 2027, models will be able to do the work of an AI researcher or software engineer." And to be clear, he's not saying that in some fantasy future where AI has a face and walks around like a robot. No, he's talking about the models we already have today, just scaled further.
And this is where, the sort of intelligence explosion stuff comes in, which, we should also talk about later. It's sort of like, you have AGI, you have this sort of drop-in remote worker that can replace, you or me, at least that sort of remote jobs, cognitive jobs. And then, I think fairly quickly, by default, you turn the crank, one or two more times, and then you get a thing that's smarter than humans. But I think even more than just turning the crank a few more times, I think one of the first jobs to be automated is going to be that of sort of an AI researcher engineer. And if you can automate AI research, I think things can start going very fast. Right now there's already this trend of, half an order of magnitude a year of algorithmic progress. Suppose, at this point, you're going to have GPU fleets in the tens of millions for inference, or more. And, you're going to be able to run like 100 million human equivalents of these sort of automated AI researchers. And if you can do that, you can maybe do, a decade's worth of sort of ML research progress in a year. You get some sort of 10x speed up. And if you can do that, I think you can make the jump to kind of like AI that is vastly smarter than humans, within a couple years. And then, that broadens, right? So you have this sort of initial acceleration of AI research that broadens to like you apply R&D to a bunch of other fields of technology. The sort of like extremes, at this point you have like 1 billion just super intelligent researchers, engineers, technicians, everything, superbly competent at all the things, they're going to figure out robotics, right? We talked about it being a software problem. Well, now you have 1 billion of super smarter than the smartest human researchers, AI researchers on your cluster, at some point during the intelligence explosion, they're going to be able to figure out robotics, and then again, that expands. And, I think if you play this picture forward, I think it is fairly unlike any other technology in that it will, I think, a couple years of lead could be utterly decisive in, say, like military competition.
One thing I'm uncertain about is whether it's more like what you say, where it's more of an implosion of you have developed an AGI and then you make it into an AI researcher. And for a while, a year or something, you're only using this ability to make hundreds of millions of other AI researchers, and then like the thing that comes out of this really frenetic process is a superintelligence, and then that goes out in the world and is developing robotics and helping you take over other countries and whatever.
I think it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more kind of like, it's not like, on and off. It's a little bit more gradual, but it's sort of like, it's an explosion that starts narrowly. It can do cognitive jobs. The highest ROI used for cognitive jobs is make the AI better, like solve robotics, and as you solve robotics, now you can do R&D and, like biology and other technology. Initially you start with the factory workers, they're wearing the glasses and the AirPods, and the AI is instructing them, right? Because, you kind of make any worker into a skilled technician. And then you have the robots come in. And anyway, so it sort of expands. This process expands.
Meta's Ray-Bans are a compliment to their llama.
Well, it's like whatever. Like, the fabs in the US, they're constrained to skilled workers, right?
Sure.
You have even if you don't have robots yet, you have the cognitive superintelligence, and can kind of make them all into skilled workers immediately. But that's it's a very brief period. Robots will come soon.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So suppose this is actually how the tech progresses in the United States. Maybe because these companies are already experiencing hundreds of billions of dollars of AI revenue.
And at this point, companies are borrowing hundreds of billions or more in the corporate debt markets.
But why is a CCP bureaucrat, some 60-year-old guy, he looks at this and he's like, oh, it's like Copilot has gotten better now. Why are they now?
I mean, this is much more than Copilot has gotten better now. I mean, at this point,
to them, because to shift the production of an entire country to dislocate energy that is otherwise being used for consumer goods or something, and to make that all feed into the data centers. What will that be obvious? Because part of this whole story is you realize the superintelligence is coming soon, right? And I guess you realize it. Maybe I realize it. I'm not sure how much I realize it. But will the national security apparatus in the United States and will the CCP realize it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in some sense this is a really key question. I think we have sort of a few more years of mid-game, basically, and where you have a few more 2023s, and that just starts updating more and more people. And, I think, the trend lines, will become clear. I think you will see some amount of the sort of COVID dynamic, right? Like COVID was like, February of 2020, it's like, honestly feels a lot like today, where it's like, it feels like this utterly crazy thing is impending, is coming. You kind of see the exponential, and yet most of the world just doesn't realize, right? The mayor of New York is like, go out to the shows, and this is just, like Asian racism or whatever, but at some point the exponential, at some point people saw it, and then like just kind of crazy radical reactions came.
Then he adds, that doesn't require believing in science fiction. It just requires believing in straight lines on a graph. And honestly, he's right. Just look at what's already happened. GPT-2 was basically a sentence guesser. GPT-3 shocked people with how articulate it was. GPT-4 can pass professional exams, write code, tutor you in calculus, and beat most students in college-level writing. Each of those leaps happened in under 4 years. Now do the math. If the jump from GPT-2 to GPT-4 is what we got from simply scaling compute and training, then by 2027, with the same trend, we're looking at a system that doesn't just assist human researchers, it replaces them. Leopold even compares the next leap, from GPT-4 to AGI, as another preschooler to high schooler jump. That's how fast we're moving. So if that pattern holds, we'll soon have models that outperform top-tier researchers in almost every field that doesn't require physical labor. And that's not speculation. We're already seeing GPT-4 outperform humans on standardized tests, bar exams, SATs, advanced math. These models are scoring in the 90th percentile or higher. But somehow, most people still think this tech is years away from being a real threat. That's the terrifying part. And now, there's talk of GPT-5 being able to perform digital tasks autonomously. Go to a website, grab information, complete online chores like a virtual assistant that doesn't just answer, it acts. We're talking about a model that could browse, reason, and execute tasks on its own. Not just giving you information, but doing the job for you. Leopold says, barely anyone is pricing this in. And he's right again. Most people are still reacting like this is just a cool demo. But the people building these systems? They know what's coming. They know we're racing toward a future where machines aren't just tools, they're decision makers. And most of society, still asleep at the wheel.
Superintelligence applied to sort of broad fields of R&D, and then the sort of industrial explosion as well. You have the robots, you're just making lots of material. I think that could compress, basically compress kind of like a century worth of technological progress into less than a decade. And that means that a couple years could mean a sort of Gulf War I style advantage in military affairs, including a decisive advantage that even like preempts nukes, right? Suppose like, how do you find the stealthy nuclear submarines? Like right now, that's a problem of like, you have sensors, you have the software to like detect where they are. You can do that. You can find them. You have kind of like millions or billions of like mosquito-like, sized drones, and they take out the nuclear submarines, they take out the mobile launchers, they take out the other nukes. And anyway, so I think enormously destabilizing, enormously important for national power. And at some point, I think people are going to realize that. Not yet, but they will. And when they will, I think there will be sort of, I don't think it'll just be the sort of AI researchers in charge.
Now here's where things take a turn. And it's honestly one of the most disturbing parts of the whole document. Once AI becomes good enough to automate AI research, it triggers something called a recursive feedback loop. Leo describes it like this. If these AI systems could automate AI research itself, that would set intense feedback loops. What does that mean? Basically, AI builds better AI. Then that AI builds even better AI, and the cycle repeats. At first, maybe it's just speeding things up a little, but then it gets out of control fast. Leopold explains this in phases. First, you get a system that speeds up human researchers. Maybe it's 1.5x faster. Then it reaches 3x, then 10x, then 100x. Eventually, we're talking about millions of copies of an AI researcher running 24/7, never sleeping, never making mistakes, and getting smarter every day. He says, we don't need to automate everything, just AI research. That line is chilling, because it means we don't need robots or sci-fi level general intelligence to break the world open. We just need to replace the research process, and everything else follows. Let's put this into context. Imagine a world where 100 million digital researchers are working at 100 times human speed. That's the equivalent of 10 billion researcher hours every single hour. Imagine the kind of breakthroughs you could get from that. And this isn't just speculation. We've already seen it start to happen. AlphaGo discovered moves in Go that no human had ever considered. GPT-4 is already writing research summaries, planning code architecture, and even proposing experiments. Now imagine that same model trained specifically to improve itself, and then scaled up across hundreds of millions of instances. Leo writes, AI research compressed into weeks. Centuries of innovation, done in a single quarter. That's not just disruptive. That's a civilizational level change. It collapses the entire R&D cycle. There's no time for regulation, no time for ethics debates, and certainly no time to prepare. So if you're wondering why this matters, because once this loop starts, humans are no longer in charge of the pace of progress. And if the first thing this new intelligence decides to do is make itself smarter, then it's already too late to stop what comes next.
The possibilities for dictatorship with superintelligence are sort of even crazier, right? I think, imagine you have a perfectly loyal military and security force, right? That's it. No more rebellions, right? No more popular uprisings, perfectly loyal, you have perfect lie detection, you have surveillance of everybody, you can perfectly figure out who's the dissenter, weed them out, no Gorbachev would have ever risen to power who had some doubts about the system, no military coup would have ever happened. And I think I think there's a real way in which, part of why things have worked out is that, ideas can evolve, and there's sort of like some sense in which sort of time heals a lot of wounds, and time and solves a lot of debates, and a lot of people had really strong convictions, but a lot of those have been overturned by time because there's been this continued pluralism and evolution. I think there's a way in which kind of like if you take a CCP-like approach to kind of like truth is what the party says, and you supercharge that with superintelligence. I think there's a way in which that could just be like locked in and enshrined for a long time, and I think the possibilities are pretty terrifying.
So I wonder, when we're talking today about the CCP, listen, the people in China who will be doing their version of the project will be AI researchers who are somewhat westernized, who interact with, either got educated in the West or have colleagues in the West. Are they going to sign up for the CCP project that's going to hand over control to Xi Jinping? What's your sense on? I mean, it's just like fundamentally they're just people, right? Like, can't you like convince them about the dangers of superintelligence?
Will they be in charge though? I mean, in some sense, this is also the case, in the US or whatever. Right. This is sort of like rapidly depreciating influence of the lab employees. Like right now, the sort of AI lab employees have so much power, right, over this, like you
but
saw
they're going to get automated and then...
Well, yeah, I mean, you saw this in November event, so much power, right? But both they're going to get automated and they're going to lose all their power. And it'll just be, kind of like a few people in charge with their sort of armies of automated eyes. But also, it's sort of like the politicians and the generals and the sort of national security state. A lot of, there's sort of, this is the sort of some of these classic scenes from, the Oppenheimer movies. The scientists built it and then it was kind of, and the bomb was shipped away and it was out of their hands. I actually think it's good for like lab employees to be aware of this. It's like you have a lot of power now, but maybe not for that long, and use it wisely. I do think they would benefit from some more, organs of representative democracy.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I mean, in the OpenAI board events, employee power is exercised in a very sort of direct democracy way, and I feel like that's how some of how that went about. I think it really highlighted the benefits of representative democracy and having some deliberative organs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the 100 billion revenue, whatever, and so these companies.
$1 trillion cluster.
Yeah, the companies are trying to build clusters that are this big.
Yeah.
Where are they building it? Because if you say it's the amount of energy that would be required for a small or medium-sized U.S. state, is it then Colorado gets no power and it's happening in the United States, or is it happening somewhere else?
Oh, I mean, I think in some sense, this is the thing that I always find funny is, you talk about Colorado gets no power. The easy way to get the power would be like, displace less economically useful stuff. It's like, whatever, buy up the aluminum smelting plant and, that has a gigawatt and, we're going to replace it with the data center because that's important. That's not actually happening because a lot of these power contracts are really sort of long-term locked in. There's obviously people don't like things like this. And so it seems like in practice, what it's requiring, at least right now, is building new power. That might change. And I think that's when things get really interesting, when it's like, no, we're just dedicating all of the power to the AGI. But anyway, so right now it's building new power. 10 gigawatt, I think quite doable. It's like a few percent of like US natural gas production. When you have the 10 gigawatt training cluster, you have a lot more inference. So that starts getting more, I think 100 gigawatt, that starts getting pretty wild. That's, again, it's like over 20% of US electricity production. I think it's pretty doable, especially if you're willing to go for like natural gas. I do think it is incredibly important that these clusters are in the United States.
And why does it matter it's in the US?
Look, I think there's some people who are trying to build clusters elsewhere, and there's like a lot of free-flowing Middle Eastern money that's trying to build clusters elsewhere. I think this comes back to the sort of like national security question we talked about earlier. Like, would you do the Manhattan Project in the UAE, right? And I think basically like putting the clusters, I think you can put them in the US, you can put them in sort of like allied democracies. But I think once you put them in kind of like, dictatorships, authoritarian dictatorships, you kind of create this, irreversible security risk, right? So, one, cluster is there, much easier for them to exfiltrate the weights. They can like literally steal the AGI, the superintelligence. It's like they got a copy of the, of the atomic bomb, and they just got a direct replica of that. And it makes it much easier to them. Weird ties to China, you can just ship that to China. So that's a huge risk. Another thing is they can just seize the compute, right? Like maybe right now they just think of this. In general, I think people, I think the issue here is people are thinking of this as, ChatGPT, big tech product clusters. But I think the clusters being planned now, 3 to 5 years out, like they will be the like AGI superintelligence clusters. And so anyway, so like when things get hot, they might just seize the compute. And I don't know, suppose we put like, 25% of the compute capacity in these sort of Middle Eastern dictatorships. Well, they seize that, and now it's sort of a ratio of compute of 3 to 1. And we still have some more, but even only 25% of compute there, like I think it starts getting pretty hairy. I think 3 to 1 is like not that great of a ratio. You can do a lot with that amount of compute. And then look, even if they don't actually do this, right? Even if they don't actually seize the compute, even if they actually don't steal the weights, there's just a lot of implicit leverage you get, right? They get the seat at the AGI table. I don't know why we're giving authoritarian dictatorships the seat at the AGI table.
This is where the stakes go from scary to existential. Leo argues that superintelligence isn't just powerful, it's political. Whoever builds it first wins. Not just the AI race, but the entire global power structure. He puts it bluntly. Superintelligence could eliminate every historical threat to a dictator's rule. Let that sink in. Historically, authoritarian regimes had limits: rebellion, civil unrest, lack of innovation. But if a dictator gets access to AGI-level tech, those limits disappear. He paints a very real possibility. AI-controlled surveillance systems watching every citizen 24/7. Robotic police with zero dissent and perfect obedience. AI models capable of detecting lies, suppressing protests, predicting disloyalty before it happens. That's not just dystopia, that's permanent authoritarianism. And the terrifying thing? We're not securing this technology. Leo warns that top AI labs today, yes, even OpenAI, are treating AGI-level tech like a university research project. He literally says, they are handing the key secrets for AGI to the CCP on a silver platter. Why? Because most companies don't have real security infrastructure, no classified clearance process, no military-level information control, and get this, Leopold claims secrets are being leaked through open laptops at cafes, screenshots, conversations at parties. If true, that's insane. We're talking about a $1 trillion race with global consequences, and the secrets are sitting on someone's MacBook Pro next to their coffee. OpenAI even responded indirectly to this, releasing a blog post titled "Securing Research Infrastructure for Advanced AI." But let's be honest, why was a blog post even necessary if the system was secure to begin with? Leopold raises the most critical red flag. Even if the US builds superintelligence first, if it gets leaked to a hostile state, it's over. Here's the analogy he uses. Imagine if the Nazis had gotten an exact duplicate of every atomic bomb made in Los Alamos. Now apply that to AGI, the code, the weights, the training pipeline. You don't need to recreate the science, you just need to copy the folder. That's what model weights are, files. Not locked down physical tech, not buried infrastructure, just files. Ones that can be stolen, duplicated, and scaled. If China, or any other adversary, gets access to that, they can unleash their own intelligence explosion. And at that point, there's no time to catch up. No buffer, no pause button. Leo says, our failure today will be irreversible. And I believe him. Because once another power, authoritarian or otherwise, has AGI, they don't need permission. They don't need to tell us. They can scale it silently, improve it internally. And once the intelligence explosion begins, they've already won. So to sum up, superintelligence isn't just about automation. It's about power. If the US leaks its AGI secrets, there's no recovery. And if the wrong regime controls AGI first, it's not just political dominance, it's permanent global control. And somehow, we're not treating it like the Manhattan Project. We're treating it like startup software. That's the real danger. So what do you think? Is anyone really ready for this? If this video made you think, hit like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. We're just getting started.
Details on OpenAI's deal to build one of the world's largest AI data centers in Abu Dhabi. Sources telling CNBC's Kate Rooney that Elon Musk worked to try to stop that deal if it didn't include his own AI startup, XAI.
What do you think about, like, when Elon was calling for a pause on AI?
And he was like starting an AGI company while he was doing that.
Yeah. So didn't he start it like after he was calling for the pause?
I think before, but I don't remember. In any case,
is it one of those you can't beat him, join him things?
I think the instinct of saying, like, we've really got to figure out how to make this safe and good and, like, widely good is really important. But I think calling for a pause is, like, naive at best.
So I was sitting at the dinner with Macron. So it was Macron, it was JD Vance, and it was Sam Altman. Frankly, I think Elon was a little jealous that Sam Altman was sitting next to JD Vance, and it wasn't him. And because it was right around the time that Sam Altman was speaking that he announced it. And frankly, I thought Sam's tweet response, part of it was pretty good. I would have probably said, instead of whatever he said about 9 billion, I would have said, yeah, I'm going to take Twitter public at $420 a share. It was attention grabbing, right? Some people can't stand to not be getting attention.
The battle for the future of artificial intelligence is a clash of ideologies, a fight for the very soul of what AI should be. And at the heart of this explosive drama, two billionaires, each with a vision for AI that couldn't be more different. On one side, you have Elon Musk, the relentless innovator and tech disruptor, the man who's been reshaping industries for decades. On the other, you have Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who's become the gatekeeper of one of the most powerful technologies humanity has ever known. This is a story of vision, trust, and control, and at stake is nothing less than who will own the future of AI. Musk is making moves that could flip everything we thought we knew about AI, and his latest play? A $97 billion bid to take over OpenAI, the very company he helped create. But here's the kicker. Altman made it clear. OpenAI is not for sale. So why the offer? What's behind Musk's sudden push to seize control? Is this just a billionaire power play, an attempt to slow down a competitor? Or does Musk truly believe that OpenAI has strayed from its original mission? Musk's frustration is palpable. He believes OpenAI has veered off course, morphing from its non-profit roots into a profit-driven juggernaut. In Musk's eyes, this is about preserving the mission to ensure AI doesn't become a weapon of the few. And if Musk has his way, he'll tear down the walls of secrecy and profit-driven agendas to create an AI that's open, safe, and accessible to everyone. But let's not kid ourselves. This is about trust. Sam Altman may have once stood shoulder to shoulder with Musk as they co-founded OpenAI, but the cracks have been widening for years. Musk's vision of an open, transparent AI world doesn't align with Altman's increasingly corporate-driven OpenAI, which is more focused on scaling rapidly, securing funding, and positioning itself for long-term dominance. This shift from non-profit to a hybrid for-profit model hasn't just raised eyebrows, it's turned the company's very identity on its head. Musk wants to put the brakes on that, but Altman? He's accelerating forward, convinced that the company needs the freedom to grow and evolve, even if it means embracing profit. And let's not forget the stakes here. What happens if Musk pulls this off? If he successfully takes control of OpenAI, dismantles its current structure, and builds a rival, we might be looking at a complete upheaval in the AI world. AI development could become more transparent, safer, and more accessible. But that's a big if. Musk has never been shy about taking risks, but is he really prepared to handle the immense power that comes with controlling such a force? And if he doesn't succeed, if Altman holds onto the reins and steers OpenAI down its current path, what does that mean for the future? Does it mean we're handing the keys to the most powerful technology in human history to a single company? And by extension, one individual's vision of how AI should be developed? Sam Altman insists that OpenAI's mission hasn't changed, but the reality is, things are different. OpenAI may have started as a non-profit, a dream to create AI for the good of humanity. But now, it's a multi-billion-dollar empire where the lines between mission-driven idealism and capitalistic ambition are becoming harder and harder to distinguish. Altman may have started OpenAI with a noble goal, but as he steers it into the realm of profit, the question arises: can we trust him with the future of AI? Is he still the right person to protect us from the very risks he once warned about? So buckle up, because this battle is far from over. Whether it's Musk's vision of an open, regulated AI world, or Altman's quest to lead OpenAI into the future, the stakes have never been higher. And whichever side you're on, there's no denying that this is one race we can't afford to lose.
OpenAI, I mean, you seem somewhat frustrated with them. You were one of the big contributors early on.
The reason I am the reason OpenAI exists.
How much money did you give them?
I'm not sure the exact number, but it's some number on the order of $50 million. Man, fate loves irony, next level.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel for him?
I do, actually. I don't think he's like a happy person. I do feel for him.
Elon Musk is part of an investor group trying to buy OpenAI, the parent company of the popular chat GPT service. Musk is leading a group of investors who have made a bid to buy OpenAI for nearly $100 billion. But Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, says there's just one problem.
OpenAI is not for sale. The OpenAI mission is not for sale. scale. Elon tries all sorts of things for a long time. This is this week's episode.
You take it seriously at all? What do you think he's trying to drive at with this?
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor.
The backstory here is key, right? Musk actually co-founded OpenAI back in 2015, but he has feuded with Sam Altman ever since then over OpenAI's plans to convert from a nonprofit to a for-profit company.
Something is boiling beneath the surface of Silicon Valley. Elon Musk is suing the very company he co-founded. Sam Altman, the man currently running that company, is in the spotlight, answering questions, dodging accusations, and subtly firing back. But this isn't just another tech feud. This is a power struggle over who controls the future of artificial intelligence. Because if Elon Musk gets his way, if he dismantles OpenAI, builds a rival, or reclaims the narrative, it might just flip the script on everything we thought we knew about AI, safety, and control. But if he doesn't, if Altman keeps the wheel and pushes forward without brakes or oversight, then yes, we might really be screwed. This is about how power shifts when the most advanced intelligence ever created lands in human hands, and whether we've put it in the right ones.
One of the other questions, and it is Elon related, is you are now moving towards having a for-profit component part of your business. Right now it's a not-for-profit. And he, as everybody knows, if you read the papers, is suing you over this and many other things. How do you feel? I actually just want to ask you on a very personal level, forgetting about even the merits of the case. As a guy who has spent a lot of time with him and you guys founded this thing together, how you feel personally today about all this? This is a
tremendously sad. I grew up with Elon as like a mega hero. I thought what Elon was doing was absolutely incredible for the world. And I'm still, of course, I have different feelings about him now, but I'm still glad he exists. And not just because, no, I mean that genuinely, not just because I think his companies are awesome, which I do think, but because I think he, at a time when most of the world was not thinking very ambitiously, he pushed a lot of people, me included, to think much more ambitiously. And I'm grateful is the wrong kind of word, but I'm thankful, I'm positive about that. We started OpenAI together, and then at some point he totally lost faith in OpenAI and decided to go his own way, and that's fine too, but I think of Elon as a builder and someone who, known thing about Elon, he really cares about being the guy. But I think of him as someone that if he's not, that just competes in the market and in technology and whatever else, and doesn't resort to lawfare. And, whatever the stated complaint is, what I believe is he's just he's a competitor and we're doing well. And that's sad to see.
How concerned is Sam Altman about annihilation, do you think?
I think in reality he is not concerned about it. I don't trust OpenAI. I started that company as a non-profit open source.
Yes.
The open in OpenAI, I named the company.
Yeah.
OpenAI as an open source, and it is now extremely closed source and maximizing profit. I don't understand how you actually go from being an open source nonprofit to a closed source for maximum profit organization.
Let me ask you a different question just about the company. You did start it as a not-for-profit. It was a research outfit originally.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a view that it has to shift to be some kind of profit-oriented company.
Well,
does it have to?
First of all, I'd like to talk about the reason we started as a nonprofit, because I think it sort of speaks to the answer too. When we started, we did not have any idea that we were going to be a product company. We also did not know that the amount of capital we needed would turn out to be so huge. If we did know those things, we would have picked a different structure. It's hard to overstate, because it wasn't that long ago on the calendar, but it's hard to overstate how different 2016 was. This was years before we had the research that led to language models. This was 4.5 years before we launched our first product. This was 6.5 years before we launched ChatGPT. All we knew that we wanted to do was do some AI research, and that we thought AGI and superintelligence eventually would be this important thing to the world. And we wanted to somehow do something that would be good. At the time we were working on writing papers, new RL algorithms, new theories, a way to play video games, a robotic hand, And it was not clear that there would ever be a product or revenue stream at all. And it wasn't clear that we were going to need one, because it wasn't clear we needed so much money. It became clear after GPT-1 and some other work that we were going to need to scale. And we started, and also Elon decided to stop funding us as a nonprofit, and we couldn't get somebody else to do it, that we needed to find a way to make a capped profit. Now, we wanted to keep going with a lot of the things that we think are good about a nonprofit, and so we had this subsidiary capped profit that worked for a while.
We start with a question that cuts straight to the core. How do you feel about Elon Musk suing you? Sam Altman doesn't flinch. But what he gives us isn't a corporate answer. It's something more personal, more conflicted. He talks about idolizing Elon, seeing him as a hero. Not a mentor, not a colleague, a hero. That's worship-level admiration. And when someone you revere becomes your legal opponent, that's grief. But let's step back. Why does this matter? Because it exposes the emotional rot under the surface of OpenAI. A company born from big, idealistic dreams, co-founded by people who believed they could steer the most powerful technology on Earth, fractured into lawsuits and counterclaims. When Sam says Elon lost faith in OpenAI, he makes it sound like a bad breakup. But really, it's the story of two visions diverging. Elon wanted AI to be open source, safe, shared. Sam saw a different path, one that required capital, scaling, and eventually, control. And that control is exactly what Elon is afraid of. Elon's fear isn't new. He's warned for years about AI becoming humanity's last invention, especially if it's wielded by the wrong people. So when he sees Sam leading a company that's both secretive and profitable, he sounds the alarm. I don't trust OpenAI. This is the kind of institutional breakdown that could define the next decade. The very people who were supposed to protect us from runaway AI can't even trust each other. And while they trade jabs in interviews and court filings, the technology keeps evolving, faster, smarter, scarier. So what happens if Elon decides to launch his own AI, built from scratch and engineered to outcompete OpenAI? Well, if he's right, if Sam really can't be trusted, then that move might be the only thing that keeps us from handing the keys to the kingdom over to a single private empire. But if Elon's wrong, then we're in a global arms race of egos, not ethics. And in that kind of race, no one wins.
Meantime, this new chapter in the battle of the tech billionaires, Sam Altman rejecting that $97.4 billion bid by an Elon Musk-led group looking to take control of OpenAI. CNBC's Arjun Karpal caught up with Altman at this AI conference this morning in Paris, which is the locus of pretty much all global attention today. Hey, Arjun.
Hey, good morning, Carl. And look, one of the things and the rationales behind the deal from Elon Musk, which is very important, is he thinks OpenAI has strayed from its goal to create AI that benefits humanity, and that's why he says he's put in his bid. But what does Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, thinks? This was amongst the questions I put to him. Why do you think Musk is putting a bid in now? Let's listen into what he had to say. Musk bid for OpenAI?
Yeah.
How seriously are you taking it?
Not particularly.
Not particularly. Why do you think he's doing this?
To slow down a competitor.
And Stargate?
What
Do you
about
have the funding?
I'm not the one who tweeted funding secured. I just actually try to show up and, build the thing.
Sam, just a quick one.
What's the endgame, Mr. Rome? What is the endgame
Just a quick-
of Elon Musk? I don't know. I'm curious. Yeah. I think it's to slow down a competitor and try to catch up with his thing, but I don't really know.
Yeah, but you know well, right?
To the degree anybody does, yeah.
Just when you think the rift couldn't get any deeper, Sam throws down a new card, publicly. In a short clip, he's asked how seriously he takes Elon's bid for OpenAI. His response? Not particularly. That sounds casual, but make no mistake, it's strategic. He's not just downplaying Elon, he's exposing him. Altman claims Elon is trying to slow down a competitor, not protect the world, not champion ethics, but stall the progress of a rival he can't keep up with. And then comes the snark. I'm not the one who tweeted funding secured. That's a shot across the bow. A dig at Elon's infamous SEC battle. What this shows is critical. The gloves are off. This is about undermining each other publicly, damaging reputations, and taking the AI race into the mud. And Sam's final word? I don't really know what Elon's endgame is. That's casting doubt. It's Sam planting the idea that maybe Elon doesn't even have a master plan. Just a grudge and a need to stay relevant in a space he helped ignite, but no longer controls. This isn't a chess match, it's a street fight. And at this point, neither side is pretending otherwise.
And in some senses still does kind of work, and in some other senses is like straining the theory of what a nonprofit controlled org can be and the amount of capital we need at this next stage. So we are, and have been for a while, looking at some changes. Nothing is decided. It is, as you can imagine, like very complicated to figure this out. And the board is like hard at work on it. I don't, in any configuration, like the nonprofit doesn't go away. Like one thing that the board has looked at, for example, is a PBC that a nonprofit owns a huge chunk of and then figures out how to use that amount of wealth for the purpose of the nonprofit. There's other ideas too.
One of the things I've always been fascinated by is you never took equity in the company.
I think you think about that more than I do.
I'm surprised. You get paid $76,000, I looked.
I believe you.
And that's it. If the company does have one of these moments, there's an expectation you will get some equity.
There was a bunch of press about that, and there's been like some investor pressure. It is weird that I didn't get equity.
Did you want it? You didn't want it?
No, I didn't want it. If I could go back in time, I would have taken it, just some little bit, just to never have to answer this question. And no matter how many times I try to explain to people, like, I have the most interesting, coolest job in the world. This is like my retirement dream way to spend my time after like what was a pretty good career. And people can work on like art projects and not get paid for that, and no one thinks it's weird or whatever. It just does not come across. So I wish I had taken some. I don't imagine I would work any harder or less hard. There would be like, I think, something clearer about the alignment I would have had with investors or whatever else, and it would have like, it definitely would have been easier to raise money. Like there are plenty of investors who have not invested because I didn't take equity.
They say, really, that's interesting. They will not invest because you don't have equity.
Come up a few times, yeah.
So if it's now the company's $157 billion, what do you think is a good number for yourself if it happens?
Again, I think you think about it more. This is my childhood dream job. Like, not every day, like not day to day. I would rather not, like, you know, be beating my head against the wall all the time. But getting to work on AGI and like getting to like sit in the room with the smartest researchers in the world and go on this crazy adventure, like, that is what I always wanted to do. That was like my literal childhood dream. And that is, all of the weirdness aside, I think it should at least be understandable that that is worth more to me than any additional money.
Well, but Sam Altman got rich, though, didn't he?
At various points, he's claimed not to be getting rich, but he's claimed many things that were false. And now apparently he's going to get $10 billion of stock or something like that. So I don't trust Sam Altman, and I don't think we want to have the most powerful AI in the world controlled by someone who is not trustworthy. And sorry, I just don't. I mean,
but that seems like a fair concern.
Yeah.
But you don't think, as someone who knows him and has dealt with him, that he is worried about the possibility this could get out of control and hurt people?
He will say those words, yeah, but no.
The next few minutes of the interview drop harder than most people realize. Sam opens up about OpenAI's nonprofit roots, and it's clear they weren't built for scale. In 2016, they weren't chasing a product. They were publishing research, tinkering with algorithms, teaching robotic hands to solve Rubik's cubes. It was science for science's sake. But then came GPT. Then came scaling. Then came the money. Sam admits, if we knew how much capital we'd need, we would have chosen a different structure. That line hits like a time bomb, because it reframes OpenAI not as a mission-led organization adapting to growth, but as a non-profit that stumbled into capitalism and never looked back. That's where the rot begins. From the outside, OpenAI still talks like a non-profit. They emphasize safety, alignment, and global benefit. But internally, they're bending structures, creating hybrid for-profit caps, exploring public benefit corporations, all to make the numbers work. And here's the catch. If you need that much capital to benefit humanity, maybe you're not building something for humanity anymore. Maybe you're building a business and trying to dress it up like a cause. Then comes the kicker. Sam never took equity. He makes $76,000 a year. To most people, that sounds noble. But to investors, It sounds suspicious. In a world where incentives drive everything, where billions are on the line, refusing to take equity means your motivations become harder to read. Are you a martyr? A puppet? A wild card? Sam says he regrets not taking a little equity. Not for the money, but to shut people up. That's honest. Maybe too honest. Because it shows how badly OpenAI wants to appear principled, even as it gets entangled in capitalism's oldest trap, trust. And then, boom, we return to Elon's voice. I don't trust Sam Altman. He doesn't believe Sam tells the truth. He doesn't believe Sam is worried about AI safety. He doesn't believe the man who helped build OpenAI should be allowed anywhere near the most powerful system on Earth. That's a red flag. Because the moment trust breaks down, not just between co-founders, but between creators and the public, AI ceases to be a tool. It becomes a weapon. And in Elon's eyes, Sam Altman is already pulling the trigger.
All right, right now, a rivalry between big tech billionaires playing out as we speak. We're talking about Elon Musk and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Altman firing back after a Musk-led group submitted an unsolicited $97.4 billion bid to take over OpenAI. Take a listen.
Sam, should you have taken Elon's offer?
You refused $1 billion for Elon Musk. What do you want to say to Elon Musk?
Receive what from him?
Almost $100 billion, right?
The company is not for sale, neither is the mission. We're happy to buy Twitter if you can talk about that.
Wow, okay. Altman made that same message in a post to X saying he'll buy Twitter for just $9.74 billion.
Elon tries all sorts of things for a long time. This is this week's episode.
You take it seriously at all? What do you think he's trying to drive at with this?
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor. He's working hard and he's raised a lot of money for XAI, and they're trying to compete with us from a technological perspective, from getting the product into the market. And I wish he would just compete by building a better product, but I think there's been a lot of tactics, many lawsuits, all sorts of other crazy stuff. Now this, and we'll try to just put our head down and keep working.
Does it make it more difficult to move from that non-profit model to that for-profit model for OpenAI?
We're not moving to a for-profit model. We're not sure what we're going to do at all, but no matter what, the nonprofit will continue to be extremely important. It will drive the mission. It will continue to exist. The board is looking at lots of options about how to best structure for this next phase, but the nonprofit is not changing into anything or going anywhere. I mean, whether they did or didn't, they built a good model. Many people will distill from many other models. Again, I feel so confident about our research roadmap and also our product roadmap that, DeepSeek will do whatever DeepSeek's going to do. Other people do whatever they're going to do. And we're just going to try to build the best technology we can and get it into people's hands. And I think that's mostly going pretty well.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel for him?
I do, actually. I don't think he's a happy person. I do feel for him.
Okay. Do you worry that he has this proximity to the president and he can influence the decision-making of the US presidency and policies around this agenda on AI?
Not particularly. Maybe I should, but not particularly. I mean, I try to just wake up and think about how we're going to make our technology better.
Sam Altman with Tom McKenzie in Paris. We go to London now. When they walked me in the room and they said, we got a fun thing for you to do. Own YouTube. The first book I read, comment, subscribe by Mark Bergen, cover to cover, inside YouTube's chaotic rise to world domination. Observing OpenAI in Paris is Bergen in London. Mark, what does Macron want out of this? What do European leaders want out of an AI soiree in Paris?
I think they want, in some ways, what they want people like Sam Altman there. He probably wanted Elon Musk there as well. They want big headline numbers, right? Macron kind of gave his version of the Project Stargate. He said 109 billion euros of investment. If you look at the finer points there's a lot of details yet to be filled in, and some of those are over a massive timeline. But I think they want to be seen as relevant, right? I mean, we had the end of that conversation between Tom and Sam Altman about DeepSeek. It's US, it's China. Europe is left out. in those conversations.
Mark, on the subject of DeepSeek, which I imagine is looming large over this gathering in Paris, there was a bit of happy talk there from Sam Altman about the fact that all of these different AI companies building their models are going to learn from each other. But as you and our colleagues have reported here, there is some, shall I say, skepticism about the way in which this Chinese company has fashioned this model. What's the latest on that as we kind of learn more about it and how it was fashioned and indeed how much it costs to do?
Yeah, I actually think they were more candid this week than I expected. We saw Demis Hassabis, who runs DeepMind and Google's AI efforts, basically telling us on TV yesterday, I think the cost that DeepMind, that 6 million figure that they use to train their models, he said it's exaggerated. He basically called BS on it. And we had Chris Lehane, who runs policy for OpenAI, saying that we've been talking with government officials about this possibility that they kind of distilled or use unauthorized access to OpenAI data.
Yeah.
And so basically built this model right on the shoulders of OpenAI.
Mark, unfair question, but let's finish with this. How does Microsoft arc over this tension of Musk and Altman? What does Microsoft want out of this?
It's a good question. I mean, in some ways, Microsoft's kind of the winner as long as people keep buying their cloud services. And I think, it seems like what Musk has thrown a little bit is a wrench between the close relationship with Microsoft and OpenAI. I believe even since after his lawsuit, they've kind of backed away from that. There's some reporting that they're not as close as they were. But, in the long run here, Microsoft wants more companies spending on chips, more companies spending on cloud compute. And I think they're fine to let this lawsuit.
It is the app that is revolutionizing the tech world and beyond. ChatGPT is one of the fastest growing apps on the market. It's AI assistant helping users solve problems both big and small, and leading investors to dream of the wild and lucrative possibilities of artificial intelligence.
They're spending tens of billions of dollars every few months in order to make artificial intelligence really happen and become mainstream.
But its parent company OpenAI's rapid growth, the subsequent injection of investor cash from several different sources, coupled with co-founder Sam Altman's desire to make the company a for-profit entity, has led his former partner Elon Musk to revolt. Musk has filed a lawsuit to slow or outright block the company's transformation. And now he's taking that feud a step further, offering close to $100 billion to take control of the company. A bid Altman didn't ask for and immediately rejected. No thank you, but we'll buy Twitter for $9.74 billion. A subtle shot at Musk, who bought the social media platform for $44 billion. Musk returned fire, calling Altman Scam Altman and a swindler. Musk's bid to take control of OpenAI comes at the same time he's enjoyed immense influence over the Trump White House.
I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
But Trump has not been afraid to keep Altman close, hosting him at the White House to announce a $100 billion investment in AI infrastructure across the U.S.
We wouldn't be able to do this without you, Mr. President.
A rivalry that Trump seems to be willing to encourage.
These two men, while they're rivals and big competitors and former business partners, they're also fighting for the affections of the President of the United States.
And in his offer to buy OpenAI, Musk's attorney promises the billionaire will return the company back to its core mission with a pledge to make it open source, nonprofit, and a, quote, safety-focused force for good that it once was.
So here's where we are. One man is building what may become the most advanced artificial intelligence platform in history. The other is trying to stop him. Not with algorithms, but with a lawsuit. And both of them helped create this storm. If Elon Musk makes this happen, if he creates a competing AI that's open, regulated, and accessible, he could flip the AI race on its head and expose just how fragile OpenAI's structure really is. But if he fails? If the lawsuit goes nowhere and OpenAI doubles down on control? Then Sam Altman becomes the de facto steward of the most powerful technology we've ever known. And that means whether or not we trust him, we're all along for the ride. So yeah, we are screwed might not be hyperbole. It might just be the understatement of the year. So, Apple just called out OpenAI and the entire AI industry without even raising their voice. While everyone else is hyping up how smart these models are, Apple quietly dropped a study that basically asks, Are these systems actually thinking, or are they just really good at faking it? We've all seen those step-by-step answers in tools like ChatGPT or Claude, where it looks like the AI is solving problems in real time. Turns out, that might not be real reasoning at all. According to Apple's research, when the puzzles get tough, even the best models break down, and not just a little. We're talking complete collapse. They tested models like Claude, DeepSeek, and OpenAI's own, and what they found was kind of brutal. In this video, we're breaking down what Apple actually discovered, why it matters, and whether these so-called intelligent systems are truly reasoning, or just putting on a show. Let's get into it.
Apple researchers now raising red flags that may be hard for the AI trade to ignore. In a new paper, they're throwing cold water on the growing trend of reasoning models and whether they're really more accurate. Deirdre Bosa has more in today's Tech Check. Please explain, Deirdre.
I will. So in doing this, Apple is essentially calling out not just a growing, but the biggest trend in AI right now, and that is reasoning, the ability of models to try and think like humans. Now, these models are everywhere. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they are all racing to build AI that doesn't just spit out answers, but shows its work step by step, promising more reliable and logical responses. But Apple scientists, they're now saying that beyond a certain point, it just doesn't work. Not only do these models struggle with harder problems, but they actually get worse as the task gets more complex and they waste computing power overthinking simple tasks. Here's an example from the paper. Now the AI, it's playing a simple version of checkers, swapping pieces from one side to the other. It starts easy, but the more pieces you add, the harder it gets. It's a logical puzzle. This chart shows how well AI models handle the puzzle as it gets harder. At first they're accurate, but at around 8 to 10 pieces, everything just collapses. Even the most advanced reasoning models, they break down. So put simply, thinking harder doesn't make these models any smarter. It just makes them slower, less reliable, and importantly, more expensive too. They're burning through compute power. So what does this all mean for investors and the AI trade at large? Well, some see this as Apple moving the goalposts, shifting the conversation because it's late to AI. But similar findings are coming from other labs too, including Anthropic and Leap, a Chinese AI research group. And they raise big questions. Is the industry chasing the wrong kind of intelligence? And so are companies like OpenAI and Google just burning through expensive compute to make these models look smart without actually getting any better. The AI boom so far, guys, you know this well, it's been about scale. But this newer narrative, which is certainly gaining momentum, that could continue to shift the focus to efficiency, and it could make investors question once again whether all this spending is actually paying off. We've seen the AI trade take off once again over the last month. But remember, these are similar doubts that stalled the AI trade earlier this year after DeepSeek's breakthrough. It was all about efficiency and ROI. Could also help explain why Apple isn't jumping into AI the same way that others are, because culturally, Apple is very hesitant to release products that aren't perfect. And this paper really shows and proves that these new reasoning models are far from perfect.
So they're not getting smarter?
Not after a certain point. So when you think about simple logical tests, yes. But when it goes into the more complex ones, they're not. They're actually just burning compute power. And the word too that I hear a lot from sources, CEOs, founders that I talk to in AI is generalization, right? What do you do with an AI model if it's very good at math and science and sort of logical problems up to a certain point, but they can't generalize? That could make the idea of agents, right? Another buzzword, something that Apple has wanted to integrate into the iPhone, much further off. That we're not going to get that. We're not going to get that killer app, that killer use case beyond a chatbot for some time.
So you think, Dee, it's a reflection of Apple's habit over the years of not overpromising? I mean, certainly that was the case with an Apple television and an Apple car. Right. We can go through a couple other case studies.
It may be. It could be a convenient excuse, which is what some critics say. But like you said, Carl, we know that Apple wants to get things perfect. This shows that it's not perfect yet. So maybe it's hesitating, but it could also help explain why Apple hasn't spent the same kind of billions and billions of dollars on CapEx that others have. It's sort of taking a step back, watching this efficiency race play out before jumping into sort of these bigger models that at the end of the day may not actually be smarter.
I love how deep you go, Deirdre. Thank you very much, Deirdre Bosa, which is a good preview because Apple's a big story this afternoon, but also importantly for Apple, so are the trade talks between U.S. and China happening in London.
So here's what's happening. A lot of new AI models, especially the ones claiming to be smarter, more advanced, or human-like, are starting to show their work. They don't just give you an answer, they give you their reasoning step by step. This technique is called chain of thought prompting, and it's supposed to simulate how a person would think through a problem. If you ask it a math question, it might walk you through the logic. First, we subtract x from y, then we divide, all the way to the final answer. Visually and structurally, it looks like thinking. But here's the catch. Nobody really questioned whether those steps were accurate. Everyone was focused on whether the final answer was right. That's like seeing someone get the right answer on a test and assuming they understood the topic, without checking if they cheated, guessed, or copied someone else's work. Just because it looks like logical thought doesn't mean it actually is. This illusion is what Apple set out to test. They weren't satisfied with just getting the right answer. They wanted to know, is the model actually reasoning its way there, or is it just mimicking patterns from its training data that look like reasoning? This is a subtle but critical distinction, because if the steps are fake or just stitched together from memorized bits, it means the AI isn't actually understanding anything. It's faking the act of thinking. That's not a small problem. The entire pitch behind these new models is that they're more intelligent, that they can solve harder problems, handle more responsibility, and even assist with scientific discovery. But if the process behind their answers is flawed, then we're building an entire generation of tools on a foundation that might be cracked.
And the biggest thing is they were blindsided when generative AI with ChatGPT and GitHub launched back in 2022, November 2022. I'm told Apple Intelligence wasn't even an idea back then.
Why?
Well, they missed the boat.
But how? I mean, I mean, I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, clearly there was philosophical disagreement and philosophical disinterest in the topic of artificial intelligence. I write about how Craig Federighi, Apple's senior VP of software engineering, doesn't really believe in these multi-billion-dollar projects. He tends to try to shut down or steer away from projects of that sort, and AI is something of that nature. AI is quite a bit messy. They're known for their very intricate and well-designed user experiences. AI sometimes with hallucinations can take away from that, but I think they didn't think it was going to be as big of a thing as it became today. A lot of it fell on deaf ears years ago, I'm told. But really, this is a company that's known for updating their operating systems once a year. It's known as a company that focuses on the minutia, and they missed the big picture here with artificial intelligence, and it really is a shame. You know, the big picture here isn't the AI capabilities of its devices today. The big picture today is the AI capability of future hardware. If you don't have the core technology, the AI ready to go at a deep level, how are you going to develop products like humanoid robots, smart glasses, watches and AirPods with depth sensing cameras for AI purposes? Can't do any of that if you don't have that technology. So they need to seriously turn this thing around quickly, or they're going to be in big trouble. This is as core a technology as the touchscreen.
Wow.
I mean, first of all, how many words is this story, dude?
6,000.
Yeah, this is a long, well in-depth story, folks. So if you want to get smart on AI and Apple, you got to read the story. It's in the Bloomberg Business Week. It's on the terminal. I'm sure it's everywhere else as well. Mark, what can they do? If I'm an investor, that's the only question I have for Tim Cook. Can you guys catch up and get some of that AI pixie dust in your stock?
Yes, they need to make acquisitions, and they need to up the percentage of that R&D budget tied to AI. They need to up that percentage. They need to allocate more of their hires to AI as well. So they need to go big or go home on this. And I think...
Do they know that, do you think?
Yeah, of course they know that.
Okay.
How do they go big?
You got to spend more money. AI is really one of the only things that you can buy your way into when it comes to this technology, right? You can buy your way into it. You just need to throw billions and billions at AI training. They need to make probably some tweaks to their privacy policy, right? They have so many devices. They have more devices than anyone else as a single brand of a hardware company, of any company in the entire world, in the history of the world. But they don't leverage that because of their privacy stance. So maybe make some tweaks there to be able to collect some more data. Maybe figure out a way to convince people to give up some of their data for this purpose. And I think that could go a long way for them. So spending money, collecting more data.
Is there somebody out there that they could buy, should buy, that would leapfrog them, do you think?
I hate doing that though, right?
Well, the problem is this philosophical disgust, I would say, to making these large acquisitions. If I told you, I mean, you know this is true, so maybe you're not a good example, but if I said to someone who didn't know the company as well as you two, would you believe me if I told you that Apple's biggest acquisition in the history of the company was $3 billion?
I actually believe that.
Well, you believe that because you know that. But I think if you ask people who didn't know that, that would be completely unbelievable. They make these small acquisitions. And in addition to not wanting to spend big bucks on a company, they're really poor at integrating companies. The Beats integration, integrating all those engineers into the company, disaster. Intel, they bought the modem unit for $1 billion back in 19, disaster. What is it going to feel as an AI person at Apple today if the company buys your replacement to bring them in? It's not going to be fun. There's enough turf wars as it is at Apple. So
if they do then have to do it internally, they've still not done well at that.
They've got to do both. They got to make the acquisition. They got to just deal with that. They got to make their biggest acquisition ever, and it has to be for AI, maybe multiple acquisitions. They have to turn things up a notch internally as well. They're going to be making changes. I mean, there's so many philosophical disagreements. The biggest is about chatbots when it comes to AI. They are allergic to AI chatbots. They don't like the technology. They don't think OpenAI has staying power. So yes, I know.
I made a face when he said that, by the way. Okay.
You're going to see deeper integrations with other companies. You're going to see Google Gemini integration. I think next year you'll see Perplexity integration, maybe some Anthropic integration, maybe some Microsoft integration, but they're going to keep pushing, and this is going to be a multi-year thing. The biggest problem is they were caught off guard when this happened, so they had no head start on this. They're coming way from behind.
Now, my next guest has been a fan of Astera Labs for some time now. In fact, she introduced us to this stock a while back. Spirit Leads investor, founder, chief investment officer, Ivana Dalevska. Ivana, now, are you happy with what you just heard from the CEO?
Absolutely, Charles. So thanks for having me. We really like Astera Labs here, especially post this pullback. I think many investors don't understand exactly what the company does, which is why you see this more violent volatility and swings. But if you can find good entry points, this is a really good company to own for the long term.
These are some of the things that you talked about being a pure play. I like this part. Several products have 100% market share right now.
That's right, Charles. So the PCIe Express that you mentioned earlier and that the CEO referred to has close to 95% market share. So when you talk about competition with Broadcom and other players, everybody is working on different parts of the value chain. So they're not necessarily competing with each other. So they have a very strong market share in this particular product. And then the Leo and Scorpio, those will be products that will ramp in the second half of this year and more in 2026. So
it sounded like he's got a great relationship with his customers, but it sounded like it wasn't a lot of customers. You talk about customer expansion.
That's right. So a lot of these products are brand new things. So they first started with NVIDIA on the PCIe Express retimers, right? And then they're expanding further into other customers. So we think that now their number 2 customers is approaching the size of NVIDIA, and number 3 is not too far behind. So as they expand the customer base, you're going to see a lot more stable earnings rather than what we've seen.
I got to ask you about this. I asked him about this Apple paper I saw over the weekend. It got a lot of traction, right? Essentially boils down to maybe this whole AI thing. At the moment, it's just mostly smoke and mirrors. What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's a very interesting thing, this concept of thinking AI. I think we're very far from the point where AI can think. We're going to have to deploy significantly more GPUs to get to that point. We are at a point where...
Is that AGI or ASI?
Well, it's actually like this would just be the second layer of iterative AI. So it's really like step 1 was generative AI, where like you prompt ChatGPT and it gives you a reply. Now it just does few more iteration, which is what's really used in the agentic AI models. But to get to like where AI can reason, like the AGI or one of those more advanced stages, I think we're at like 10 years, really? 10 years behind.
So rest comfortably. It may take our job, but it won't. It will still need us around.
Exactly. It really works side by side to humans, and the new things that you're going to see introduced over the next 6 months is really going to be how they're going to help you do better, be better at your job.
Thanks for watching. If you want more in-depth breakdowns on the AI war, tech drama, and what's coming next, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. The future is coming fast, and it doesn't care if we're ready.